Hello, I wanted to welcome everyone to this live telephone town hall. We are joined by Ambassador Carla Sands, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate for the Great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Also joining her is Ambassador Robert O'Brien. During this call, we will be taking questions, so if you have a question, please press *3, and one of our screeners will be with you shortly. Now I'll turn it over to Ambassador Sands and Ambassador O'Brien for your opening remarks.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon. This is Carla Sands, and I'm a conservative, pro-life, pro-First and Second Amendment, America First Republican running for the United States Senate, and you're joining our live telephone town hall. And we have this great technology that's going to allow us to talk about the issues that are important to you. And most importantly, you can ask me your most important questions. But before we begin, my team's going to take a moment and explain to you how this technology works.
If at any time you would like to ask a question or make a comment, press *3 on your phone. You will then be placed in a queue to ask a question. Again, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please press *3.
And I think we're ready to go. So I'd just like to take a minute to tell you why I'm running for the United States Senate. You know, I'm running because I'm called, and because we have to stop the radical left from taking away our constitutional freedoms, from selling out our country and destroying our economy. The Joe Biden administration is more like, it's radical Marxists. They're like Bernie Sanders and AOC. They're not the Democrats of John F. Kennedy. And, you know, these Washington elites and even many Republicans seem to be working for themselves, and we can do better. I'm ready on day one to roll up my sleeves and work hard on your behalf. I'll work to kill the out-of-control inflation by stopping Joe Biden administration radical spending. We'll secure our borders, ban critical race theory, and protect our farmers from the Green New Deal. I'm Carla Sands, and I'll be Pennsylvania's energy senator, and we'll end our reliance on foreign oil and make us America energy dominant once again. You know, I put our country first and served the United States and President Trump with honor on the international stage as the U.S. ambassador. And also, you know, I just want to share with you that I have called for Operation Warp Speed to lower our gas prices. You know, I want us to harvest and put the pipes in and use our own domestic energy, not Russian, Venezuelan, or Iranian energy. Together, we're going to unleash our American full potential for energy by enhancing our great Pennsylvania abundant natural gas production. I'm pro-life, I support the Second Amendment, and I think that everyone should have to show voter ID when they vote. If you like what you've heard so far, great, but I need your help to win. I need Republicans to vote for me on May 17th in the primary. And I can't rely on the media to tell you what I just told you, because I need your help. If you want to volunteer, you can push 1 right now. If you'll volunteer, you can help us get our message out to voters. So please push 1 now. I am proud and honored to have the endorsement of my friend and our nation's former national security advisor under President Trump, Robert O'Brien. I worked very closely with him and his team in our efforts to fight back against China and Russia's blatant theft, intimidation, and covert actions. I'm excited to have National Security Advisor O'Brien join us on this teletown hall today. Robert, are you there?
So, I'm here, Carla. It's wonderful to be with you, and I'm sure glad to be with all the Pennsylvania Republicans who joined us on the call today. I have strong family ties to Pennsylvania. My family, my cousins all live in Bucks County, and I visited the Washington Crossing Park there many times growing up, and it's a wonderful state. So as ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sands always put our country first, and she served the United States and President Trump with honor. And previous to that, she was a successful businesswoman. In those years, I knew Carla, and we've known each other for a long time. We worked very hard together to elect Republican candidates and elect Republicans to the highest office in the land. She's been there as a Republican and as an American First Republican for many, many years before it was popular. And I can tell you firsthand, as National Security Advisor, it was Carla's diplomacy that advanced our security in the Arctic, and her business acumen that created countless jobs at home, doing trade deals with Denmark and encouraging companies to come to the United States. But the other thing that she was key on, and folks don't talk about this much, but it was really important, we stopped Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would make Germany and Central Europe dependent on Russian oil and gas for forever. We stopped Nord Stream 2, and one of the ways we stopped it was by getting the Danes, our friends in Denmark, to stop the pipeline in their home waters. And it was Carla's diplomacy that was just terrific on that front. And so, look, we need, as Carla alluded to earlier, we need the Keystone pipeline to bring energy to America. We don't need the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that brings Russian energy to our friends and allies in Europe. And she was just terrific on that front. Carla is a true American patriot, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the people of Pennsylvania to elect such an experienced person to the Senate. One of the things I want to mention, I know the election's coming up in just a couple of weeks, 10 days. This reminds me very much of the J.D. Vance race. Now, I endorsed J.D. Vance. I think I was the first former senior official to endorse J.D. very early in the race. In fact, I endorsed him at the same time I endorsed Carla because they're two American first candidates. And 2 weeks ago, J.D. was in third place, and yet he surged at the end because Republican voters and primary voters understood that he believed in conservative values and putting America first like Carla does. So this race has 10 days is a long time in politics these days, and I see a lot of similarities to her surge and what's happening right now with the Sands race. It's very similar to the J.D. Vance race, and I think we're going to be celebrating Carla's win in just 10 days from now. So I'm proud to endorse you, Carla. It's a critical race for our whole country, and taking the Senate back and stopping some of these Biden policies that are so detrimental to our country. So thank you for running, and I'm here for you.
Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate that. I'm so thankful to have your support and your endorsement, and the endorsement and support of so many of President Trump's officials in this election. I think 16 of his ambassadors, maybe 17, have endorsed our campaign, along with many other Pennsylvania leaders. I just wanted to also mention, folks, faith is very important to me. We have a faith coalition with over 70 pastors across our Commonwealth supporting our campaign. And I also want to share that I really hope to work with all of you to create the opportunity society that Pennsylvania should be. We've been going in the wrong direction for decades, more than 4 decades, and it's time now to turn around our Commonwealth. And I believe that the energy emergency is going to give us that immediate window to do so. Send me to the Senate, and I will create more energy jobs and more good-paying jobs for our kids and grandkids. With that, I would just like to turn to the Tele Townhall. And if you have any questions, please press *3, and one of my campaign volunteers will put you in the queue to ask me your question. And when we put you on the line, everyone will hear you ask your question, and everybody will be able to hear my response. While we're waiting for the first question, I just want to share with you, I'm so excited to do this Tele Townhall with you all. Since tomorrow, President Trump will be in my home county of Westmoreland County, where my ancestors immigrated to in the 1770s and where they fought from in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. He'll be in Greensburg, which is where my family has been located since the 1770s, where they donated land for a church, and where my dear father was born and his mother and father. So my legacy in Greensburg is deep, and it's also dear. And I'll have many, many supporters there tomorrow promoting Sands for Senate when President Trump is there. He will see our signs, and he will know that the America First agenda is what everyone wants, and they want to send a conservative senator to Washington, not someone from New Jersey that doesn't share our values.
Okay, so one of the first questions is from Winston. What would be your plan to bring down taxes?
Well, at the federal level, we have President Trump's best in my lifetime tax reforms that he made. I mean, I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican, and President Trump's reforms were better. His reforms made us competitive in the world as well. And I think that I'll just continue to support those and make sure that Joe Biden and the radical Democrats in Washington can't unwind those, because they're salivating. They even proposed a 20% wealth tax on the richest people, but we know those kinds of taxes never work. Rich people just move away, and so what you get is less of what you're hoping to get. So President Trump actually was able to bring in more money than any other president. We know that the America First policies of low taxes and low regulations are what works. And I'll work to make sure that the regulations are only common sense on our farmers and our energy sector, because right now the radicals in control of power in Washington are attempting to put Green New Deal policies that are going to make it so hard on our family farms and on our energy workers and companies. And I'll block that death tax that the administration, the Biden administration, is trying to pass, that's going to hurt our farmers and our small business owners that would like to pass down their business to their kids.
All right, and I have a question from Karen. What is your plan to ensure elections are fair?
Well, we know that everyone on both sides of the aisle wants fair elections, and the majority support voter ID. We also know that we had Mark Zuckerberg and his wife and friends put almost $500 million into a nonprofit that helped to control how our last election in 2020 was held. And they changed the outcome of the election, according to Senator Rand Paul. So I'll work to ban private money controlling our elections. For instance, how Mark Zuckerberg stole the 2020 election and how they put all those drop boxes in place. And, you know, Dinesh D'Souza's movie's just out, 2,000 Mules, about how some of that works. And we have to make sure we have free and fair elections. I think France kind of showed us how they do it, and they do it very well. They have election day. Everyone votes on paper. They show ID. They count the votes the day of the election, and everyone knows by the end of the evening who won that election. If socialist France can hold a fair election on election day and know the outcome, I think the greatest democracy in the history of the world, the United States, can do this. And so I'll push to have at the federal level. I don't want to control elections at the federal level, but I'll encourage Pennsylvania, my state, to hold elections on election day. Election integrity is a very important issue. But, you know, I want to just veer off into the race a little bit. You know, we have a couple of so-called frontrunners that can't close this race. They can't close the deal with the voters because voters don't trust them. They want to send someone to Washington that they trust. And I want Robert O'Brien, who knows a lot about a lot because he was head of all national security under President Trump. He knows everything. I would like him to weigh in on one of the candidates, Mehmet Oz, and his Turkish relationships.
Well, Carla, thank you. And look, one thing I want to make clear, and I know you've made this clear as well, Carla, is this isn't about Mehmet's heritage, his Muslim faith, or the fact that his family's from Turkey. We're all from somewhere, I guess, except for Elizabeth Warren. We're all from somewhere else. And Mehmet's a good man. But we've never had a situation like this, at least in modern times that I'm aware of, where we have someone who's a citizen of another country running for Senate. And so, look, some of the senators have raised concerns. I know Senator Dan Sullivan has. You know, it will be problematic, I think, if Mehmet was elected to be on the Intel Committee or the Senate Armed Services Committee, to have the type of security clearance that you had as the ambassador. But look, I assume he'll drop his Turkish citizenship if he's elected, and will stop voting in Turkish elections if he's a U.S. senator. And look, I'm sure that, you know, we all do things in our lives that we wish we had a do-over. And I'm sure if Mehmet had the opportunity, he wouldn't have done his Turkish army service or voted recently in the Turkish presidential election or you know, been a representative for Turkish Airlines if he knew he was going to run for the U.S. Senate one day. So, you know, my guess is he's probably embarrassed by some of those things, and if he had a do-over, he could do it over. But, you know, like, I think we all know he's a good man, and again, this is not about his heritage or his faith, but it is about this issue of him being a citizen of another country, and you know, my assumption, I don't know if he's talked about this, my assumption is he'll drop that citizenship and stop the relationship he's got with Turkey. But, you know, that'll be for him to make that decision. And again, I think if you asked him in an honest moment, he probably wishes he hadn't done some of the things he's done. But, you know, it's a tough one. I will say that it looks like from the pictures of him voting in the Turkish election, that they had better controls on their election than we had in many of our states. I mean, I've observed elections as a U.S. election observer in Afghanistan and Ukraine and Georgia, the country of Georgia. And in Ukraine, it's the same thing as in France. There's a big plastic ballot box in the middle of a room, and you take your paper ballot and you go put it in the box, and there's a seal on the box, and you show an ID, and in some places you dip your finger in ink, and there's a lot of election security in countries around the world that we don't have in America. And so we need to make sure that our elections have integrity, and so that people on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, trust the outcome. And I think you referenced France. Marine Le Pen was able to come out and concede the election the night of the election, knowing that it was a free and fair election. We need to make sure we've got that sort of confidence with both Republicans and Democrats in American elections going forward. So I think you were right on point, Carla.
Hey, thanks,
Okay,
Robert.
and we have a great question from Pamela. Let me. Okay, Pamela, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, I loved Carla and her shredding, her little cute shredding campaign. And then I was like really upset when Donald Trump, which I love, supported Dr. Oz. I do not like Dr. Oz. I don't think he is I don't think he's honest. I stopped watching him because I didn't even like him on his TV show. Like, I don't think he knows what the heck he's doing, but I do like Carla. And I was very upset when Trump gave his endorsement to Dr. Oz. And I said, he did it because he's like a movie star or and everyone, he's a name known. And so he can beat the Democrats. But I can't trust him. Like, okay, he can beat the Democrats and he might win, but will he really vote for the way we think once he's in?
Pamela, go ahead and what question do you have for Ambassador Sands?
What? Pardon me?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I can answer to Pamela's concerns. First of all, Pamela, I'm so glad that you loved my Shredder commercial. And, you know, here's the thing. Mehmet Oz doesn't share our values. Not only is he not from Pennsylvania, and we all know it, but he's never been America first. He's been Turkey first. He served in the Turkish military. And we know that the media who like a weak Republican. They want someone to go along to get along. They don't want a conservative elected. They're all helping him. And unfortunately, President Trump got bad advice one more time. But the fact is, we have the public records, and you can follow us on social media. Carla Sands and Carla H. Sands. You can go on our Facebook page, our Twitter, Instagram's just starting out, but you're welcome on Instagram with us. We'd love to have you follow us and join our story. The problem is we have been encountering all of these times where Mehmet Oz is on camera talking about supporting critical race theory, supporting using the corrupt CDC, the people that tried to lock us down and make mandates to do gun control. He supported red flag laws in guns. He has supported so many things like transgender minor surgery and hormone treatment. he even got fooled by Jussie Smollett. Remember that hoax when he said there were MAGA guys in the streets of Chicago in the middle of the night, and it was a hoax to demonize Trump supporters? He got snookered by that guy. We all knew it was fake. How can he counter Russia and China if Jussie Smollett can fool Oz? How can he stand up to Chuck Schumer when Jussie Smollett can fool him? That's unbelievable to be taken in so easily. We need strong America First senators. He cannot close the deal with the Republican voters in Pennsylvania. Neither he nor Dave McCormick are trusted by the voters, even though they're spending tens of millions of dollars promoting themselves and fighting with each other. The voters do not trust them. They want to send an America First senator to Washington to fight for them because they see us losing our country every day because of weak Republican representatives not fighting for their constitutional rights, their freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and so many other things. Look at how many just voted on that infrastructure bill. It's a so-called infrastructure bill. Of course, we need infrastructure development in Pennsylvania, but the fact is most of that bill was leftist policies, and $10 billion here for this leftist group and $100 billion here for this leftist city. It's corruption. We need to put the government on notice that they need to be careful how much of our money they're spending. Just like we have to balance our budget, the government needs to pay attention and spend less because they're causing inflation to hurt our seniors and our working families. I'll fight for relief against all this inflation that's causing so much pain to our families, where they're literally having to choose between, are they going to fill the tank or are they going to buy groceries today? It's unconscionable.
Thank you for that, Pamela. Next, we have Karen from Easton. Karen, go ahead and ask your question for Ambassador Sands.
Okay, I changed my question now because I don't like anything that's going on right now in our country. My grandparents came over here in the 1890s, and they were coal miners in Pennsylvania. And my dad got to go to Cornell, but couldn't finish because there were no student loans. I don't like the giving people paying off their loans. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. But I'm really concerned about our border, our economy, that we're giving so much money to other nations, and people here are hungry. And I'm also concerned about our electric grids, that they're protected. They're not. And I'm really concerned about that, and I'd like to know what you have to say about that. I'm sorry, I'm so hoarse. I have a sore throat today.
Well, feel better, Karen. I want to talk a little bit about the economy and people feeling hungry. And I have many farmers and coal miners in my family history too, Karen. But first, I want to ask Ambassador and NSA Robert O'Brien to talk about the electric grid and hardening our American assets against foreign forces, for instance, Russia, China, and others.
Well, Karen, that's a great question, and it's something we spent a lot of time focusing on at the National Security Council and the Trump administration. You know, our electric grids are critical, and with the hackers and the internet and cyber warfare specialists in China and Russia and even places like Iran and North Korea, they can access our electrical grids, our pipelines, and potentially shut us down and freeze us to death in the winter. So we've got to make sure those electrical grids are protected, that they're hardened. President Trump asked for a lot more money for that, and we were planning to ask for more. And so I hope the Biden administration will take it as seriously as you are and as we did in the Trump administration to make sure that our foreign adversaries, can't sit in a basement or a bunker in North Korea, in Pyongyang, or in Beijing or in Moscow and shut down a pipeline that's bringing natural gas to our cities, or shut down an electrical grid that's feeding everything from hospitals to first responders and create real havoc in the country. So that's the type of infrastructure spending that Carla was talking about, that Ambassador Sands was talking about. we need to put our money into hardening our grids, our pipelines, and our critical infrastructure. We don't need it to go to leftist teachers unions and call it infrastructure. So how we spend that infrastructure money is really critical. And you've put your finger on probably the number one concern we've got with our electrical grids. Without power, we're going to have a tough time as a country. And so we need to make sure that those assets are strongly protected.
I totally agree. Thank you, Ambassador O'Brien. And I'll just say this, Karen. I hear what you're saying, that we have this open border. We're being invaded every day. And the Biden administration has welcomed these people. And they're getting things that American citizens don't get. Cash cards, free transportation, free housing, free telephones, and other benefits that you and I don't receive. This cannot be legal. We have to stop the Biden administration by taking back the Senate and the House. We have to take care of our American citizens. And we can see we have the war in Ukraine because of the weak leadership from the Biden White House, where he's corrupt and compromised. And I think that Ambassador O'Brien should weigh in. But for me and my Senate race, I'll just say this. Regarding Ukraine, already Congress has passed $13 billion that is aid and arms for the Ukrainians, and most of it has not been spent yet. And yet Biden is proposing $33 billion more. And I don't know, is 10% going to the big guy? Because we know Biden is corrupt and compromised in Ukraine, China, and Russia. I think instead of engaging further, yes, give them aid and give them arms. We need to take care of the Americans here at home. Make sure that our elderly people are cared for, that our veterans aren't sleeping on the street, and that our border is secure. I like troops on our own border, and let Europe go to the Ukrainian border. But I want to hear what Ambassador O'Brien thinks about this Ukraine situation.
Well, what we've seen, Carla, is that peace through strength. We talk about being Reagan Republicans, and President Trump was a Reagan Republican, and he added America first to the idea of peace through strength. We didn't blame America first when we were in power. We put America first. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of people in office now that our former UN Ambassador, Jeane Kirkpatrick, called the San Francisco Democrats, or the Blame America First crowd. And that certainly wasn't the case when we were in office and when you and I were working for President Trump to keep the country safe. Now, look, I think we're all inspired and gratified for the heroism and the courage and the daring of these Ukrainians that are standing up against Vladimir Putin as a thug and not somebody we admire. And we should do everything we can to help as the arsenal of democracy to help the Ukrainian people defend themselves. And I'm all for that. And that's why in the Trump administration, and you were part of it, we got the Javelin missiles to Ukraine. Unlike the Obama administration, where they sent them Gatorade and sleeping bags and night vision goggles, we sent them Javelin missiles to take out Russian tanks. And that's just what they did with those great platforms that were made here in America. And so the Ukrainians haven't asked for us to fight for them. They've asked for the weapons to fight, and that's what we should be doing. By the way, where are the MiGs? Where are the Polish MiGs that the Ukrainian pilots want to fly those MiGs themselves? They don't need American pilots to fly to protect their country and to create a no-fly zone. The Ukrainians are prepared to commit to have their own no-fly zone over their own country. Let's get them the MiGs, and let's cut off the Russians. Let's cut off the oil and gas sales. Let's keep developing U.S. and Canadian and Mexican oil and gas so that we're not spending money for Vladimir Putin's war machine. Now, you mentioned the $33 billion in aid to Ukraine. The American people are the most generous people in the world. And whether it was COVID and giving out 17,000 ventilators to countries all over the world, including the smallest Pacific islands, or sending our vaccines all over, the American people it's what makes us great. We're very generous. But what really irritates me is that while we're talking about giving $33 billion to Ukraine, the German government is spending $30 billion a month and giving it to Vladimir Putin by buying his oil and gas. So we need to put pressure on the Germans, just like you did when you were in Europe, Carla, and tell them, we'll help the Ukrainians, but we're not going to help the Ukrainians with $33 billion of hard-earned U.S. taxpayer money, while Germany, our ally that we're defending, is going to send Vladimir Putin $30 billion a month, 12 times what we're even talking about. So, look, we need the Trump America First policy back. The other point I'll make, and Carla, I think you know this very well, having served in Europe, this invasion of Ukraine would have never happened if President Trump was president. If President Trump when he was in office, Vladimir Putin wouldn't have dared to invade Ukraine. Xi Jinping would not have dared to invade Taiwan because they knew that President Trump was strong and tough, and we wouldn't have had the catastrophe that we had in Afghanistan that I think led in part to Putin invading Ukraine, thinking he could get away with it. So we need to return to peace through strength. Weakness in international affairs is provocative. Peace through strength works, and it doesn't just benefit America. It benefits our allies and countries all over the world to have a strong America leading, and we need to get back to those days. And it starts with taking back the House and Senate in 2022, and then we'll get the White House back again in 2024. I'm convinced of that.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to remind everyone that you can continue to ask questions by pressing *3. And our next question is coming from Patricia from Port City.
Yes, I would like to know what you propose to do to deal with our southern border problem. And do you believe the United States should build our own factories and not rely on China for products?
Well, thanks, Patricia, for that question. First of all, before I answer it, I just want to welcome President Trump to my home county of Westmoreland tomorrow, to Greensburg, the place my father was born and where my family was based since the 1770s and where they fought in the American Revolution and in the Civil War. Greensburg and Westmoreland County are beautiful and historic, and my ancestors donated land there for a church and participated as farmers, blacksmiths, and in coal mining and all different kinds of professions. I'm so proud of them. And as to your question, I was just out in western Pennsylvania near the cracker plant. It is so exciting to see billions of dollars invested in Pennsylvania to use the energy in our ground to create jobs and products that we all use in our cars, our homes, our workplace. And we know that Pennsylvania Energy is one of the opportunities that we really haven't benefited from yet. I want to increase opportunity and also bring factories home. We know, and I'm sure Ambassador O'Brien will be able to weigh in even further on this, but we have to make things in America to be a country. And for our national security, we have to be able to make steel, pharmaceuticals. Remember, China threatened us during the pandemic. Maybe we won't send you the medicines you need. They were threatening us to gain power over us. And I believe that we need to also process something called rare earth minerals, which we need in our arms, but also our cell phones and our car batteries, our electric car batteries. So I believe that one of the opportunities in Pennsylvania where we have the best natural resources, second only to Texas in our country, and enough natural gas in our ground to power the entire United States for 300 years. And I like that green transition, and I can't even imagine how many jobs are going to result from that. But making things, Pennsylvania's workforce is hardworking, they're skilled, and we're going to create so much new opportunity that our young people won't want to leave. But Ambassador O'Brien, just can you talk a little bit about the importance of making things here in America?
Absolutely, Carla. Let me first, though, make a quick comment about the border. And one of the things that President Trump did is, and my first day on the job as National Security Advisor, I flew with him on Air Force One down to the southern border, and we watched the wall being built. And we need to finish the wall. We need to finish the border wall, and because it's not just Arizona. I was just in Arizona with Senator Joni Ernst and Governor Doug Ducey. And one of the things we talked about, and Senator Ernst, who's up in Iowa in your neck of the woods, she talked about the fact that every state is a border state now because people are flooding over the southern border. It's not just Arizona and California and Texas any longer, and they're getting flown in the middle of the night all over the country and dropped off without any warning to local officials. And so every state, including Pennsylvania and Iowa and the Midwest, every state's a border state. We need to shut down our border. Now, I'm all for immigration. I'm Irish. I'm an O'Brien. We immigrated here. My wife's an immigrant. But we've got to do it the right way. We've got to have legal immigration where people sign the guest book on the way in. And I'll tell you what is happening on the southern border with the fentanyl that's coming in from China, with the cocaine and the marijuana that we stopped in the Trump administration and seized during the COVID period over $4 billion in cocaine that the cartels were trying to smuggle in, the sex trafficking, the human trafficking, the antiquities trafficking. All of this is taking place on our southern border. But it's not just the traditional cartels and traffickers. We've got people that are being arrested from Russia, from Iran, from China, from North Korea, from all over the world that are coming over our southern border, and we don't know who they are. Now, I hope that those people that are coming over are fleeing those countries. They're terrible countries, and they're coming here for freedom. But we don't know if they've been sent by their government or not because there's no vetting. I mean, we talked about a public health issue. We have to get, if you go overseas, you have to get a COVID test to come back into America. You have to wear a mask on a plane, or at least you didn't until recently, until we had one of our Trump-appointed judges ended that nonsense. But, you had to be vaccinated. At the southern border, there are no masks, there's no vaccines, there's no testing. So for public health reasons and for national security reasons, we have to get control of our border. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want legal immigration because, we're a nation of immigrants, but we got to do it the right way. And what's happening now is a travesty. The first thing we can do in response to your great question is finish the wall that we started building. On the issue of bringing our factories home, we can't have national security if the Chinese control our rare earth minerals that Carla talked about, Ambassador Sands talked about. We're in real trouble. We won't have cell phones. We won't because don't think the Chinese would shut down Shanghai and won't let their own citizens go out to a store and buy anything to eat themselves. Don't think the Chinese wouldn't do the same thing to American companies and American manufacturing if they could. And we learned with the outset of COVID that China had great leverage over us. They controlled many of our medical devices. They controlled pharmaceuticals. They controlled PPE, our masks and our gowns, and the materials the surgeons needed to do surgeries and take care of us in emergency rooms. We've got to bring that back to America. Now, I want to end with a positive note on that front. I did a seminar a couple of nights ago with Secretary Pompeo and Secretary Brulette and Secretary Perry, our two former energy secretaries. And one of the things that Secretary Perry talked about is that between Pennsylvania and Texas, those two states, those two great American states, we've got so much oil and gas, as Carla mentioned, that we can be energy independent for hundreds and hundreds of years going into the future. And not only can we take care of ourselves, we can take care of our allies. We can ship our liquid natural gas to Europe so that they can wean themselves from dependence on the Russians. We can make manufacturing here profitable and less expensive because it'll be our great plants will be using energy that comes right out of the ground nearby in Pennsylvania and Texas and the Bakken and in the Dakotas. We've got such an amazing future in this country. We've got such a bright future as America. But we've just got to take we've got to take these blessings that the Lord has given us. The Lord has given us these great blessings of energy and of resource and the rare earth minerals that Carla talked about. We don't have to be dependent on China. We don't have to be dependent on Russia. We can be dependent on ourselves. And what comes with that is our great American jobs and freedom and liberty for ourselves and for our friends and allies. And so we've got a great opportunity here as America. If we would send people to the Senate like Carla Sands, who understands these issues, our country has a very bright future. I'm very bullish on America, notwithstanding the current challenges we have. And one of the reasons I'm bullish is because all of you who are on the phone and who are supporting Carla and candidates like her across the country to take our country back. So thank you all.
Okay, and we have a question from David from Beaver County. David, you are live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I want to know how she feels about sanctuary cities in Pennsylvania and what she would do to get rid of the invasion of illegal immigrants.
Well, thank you for your question, David. I love Beaver County. I was just out there recently, and we know that we have to get control of our border, first of all, and that means build the wall and secure the border to stop the illegal immigration, and to know who's coming in our country. I mean, we don't want people breaking in the back window of our home, and we don't want them breaking in our country. It's illegal. And also, we know that the Biden administration has enabled this. They've invited them. They're not enforcing our laws. Even when the courts tell them to implement something that protects American citizens, they're slow rolling and trying not to comply with the law. So I think we need to punish cities and states that don't follow the law. And if they want to create a sanctuary city and their citizens are being harmed, I think the only thing the left understands is power and pain. You have to make it uncomfortable for them. So I believe that we should withhold funds until they behave themselves, because I believe the only thing that they will listen to is power. Republicans have not been strong going against the left as they attempt not to honor our laws and do so many other, I will just say, unconstitutional things. For instance, big tech during the pandemic, we saw that it was the public square. It's not, I've always been a free market person, but when you see them working hand in glove with the government to suppress speech, you realize we have to regulate them like the phone company. It's the only alternative because they're not behaving themselves when given the chance. So I believe that it has to be painful for cities and states that don't comply, companies that don't honor the social contract with our country. I'll also say this. So many of our companies and jobs moved away from Pennsylvania over the decades, and our middle class really hollowed out. I want to bring back the opportunity to Pennsylvania. It's one of the things I'll partner with the governor on so that we have lower regulations, lower taxes, and make it and incentivize companies to relocate here to Pennsylvania so that our kids and grandkids don't need to move away for opportunity, so that they can do better than we did in their lives. That's the American dream. And I'll also say this. I really humbly am asking for each of your vote on May 17th. And you can go to our website, carlasands.com, and volunteer right now. You can also follow us on social media. And I encourage you to share this story with your friends, your neighbors, your family, and also the folks at your church. We have a faith coalition of over 70 pastors throughout the Commonwealth supporting our campaign. I come from a very faith-filled family, and I will take that faith to Pennsylvania, to Washington, to represent you as a faithful senator. And you have my pledge that I'll take my business experience, my foreign policy, defense policy, and trade policy experience to Washington to fight for you every single day. And also that I will take our Pennsylvania values to Washington to put Pennsylvania first and America first every single day. I just want to say God bless you all. God bless America. God bless Pennsylvania. And I want to thank Ambassador Robert O'Brien for lending his time today so that you could hear from one of the Trump administration's experts in national security. And he's a very humble man, but he was the ambassador that got all of those hostages out of those hostile nations in the early days of the Trump administration. He's a national hero. When you think of those hostages that came home under President Trump, that was Ambassador Robert O'Brien's great doing. So I want to thank him again, my good friend and dear friend Robert O'Brien, and thank all of you for joining us. God bless you, and thank you for your vote on May 17th.